Welcome to the Deep Dive. You know how much we all love sports, but have you ever thought about how creepy some of those places where we watch and play sports can get?
Yeah, like especially when it's late and everybody's gone.
Exactly. Empty stadiums, fields at night.
Mm.
So today we're going deep into the world of creepy sports stories. We're using this YouTube video from Mr. Nightmare called 3 Real Creepy Horror Stories based on sports.
Oh, Mr. Nightmare. He's great at setting a spooky mood.
Right. So let's dive into the first story called The Locker Room Intruder. Imagine this. You're on a high school basketball team. You get ejected from the game for, shoving another player.
Tensions are high.
Yeah, totally. So you head to the locker room to cool off, but it's freezing cold in there and, pitch black.
That's already unsettling, isn't it? You expect a locker room to be bustling, with activity.
Right, but this is just you, alone, and then you hear it. A locker door slamming shut. And you know no one's supposed to be in there.
Oh, that would freak me out.
And then it gets worse. Footsteps start echoing through the room, but always in the aisle opposite him, like someone's pacing him, but staying hidden.
It's like that classic horror movie trope, the unseen pursuer, just waiting to strike.
Totally. And of course, he finally gets a glimpse through a hole in the lockers. And guess what he sees?
Don't tell me an eye staring back at him.
An eye staring right at him. He freaks out, runs out of the locker room, gets the coach and the rest of the team. But when they go back, the locker room's empty. Except for one thing.
What's that?
4 of his teammates' clothes are gone. All freshmen, which I thought was a creepy little detail.
Oh, yeah, like it was targeted, not just random.
Exactly. Like some kind of ritual or something. It reminded me of those stories about creatures like goblins or fairies, how they're always messing with things, turning the world upside down.
It's like this story taps into that same kind of unsettling energy.
Totally. Okay, let's move on to story number 2, Encounter in the Burning Woods. This one starts with the narrator and his girlfriend sneaking out of a youth hockey game to smoke in the woods.
Sneaking out to smoke in the woods already sounds a little sketchy.
Yeah, and these woods are called the Burning Woods. Come on, that name alone. Anyway, they're approached by these 2 guys, and one has a bright green mohawk.
Okay, now that's a look.
Right. And these guys offer them drugs. But the narrator says no, but they still can't shake this feeling like something's just off.
Yeah, that gut feeling. Sometimes you just know.
You know it. So they start to leave, and they see the guy with the mohawk watching them from behind a tree.
Yep.
And then a stick snaps. They turn around, and now they see both men.
Plus a third guy out of nowhere.
Plus a third guy, and they're all just standing there at the edge of the trees with these creepy smiles on their face.
Like they want to be seen,
Oh.
It's giving very intentional, almost ritualistic vibes.
Right. Totally creepy. So they run back to the safety of the hockey game. But as they're driving away, they notice the men's car following them.
A car chase. Now it's getting intense.
I know. They spot a police car and pull up right next to it, and luckily the other car takes off. But it really makes you wonder, what were those guys up to? Why all the theatrics, With the smiles and the sudden appearance of the third man.
It's almost like they were playing a part in some larger creepy story.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, we've got a creepy locker room and a car chase through the woods. Let's see what our third story brings. Okay, we've got a creepy locker room and a car chase through the woods. Let's see what our third story brings. This one's called the Baseball Field Terror. And it really plays into those fears we have about, isolated places. It starts with this group of friends just playing baseball in a clearing in the woods. Their own little field of dreams, right?
Until it turns into a nightmare.
Exactly. So they're playing, and then this group of 6 men just walks into the clearing. They don't say anything. They just kind of watch.
Yeah, that would definitely be unsettling. Like, why are they just standing there watching?
Right. The men are laughing and making noise, but it's not, friendly. It's more like they're trying to intimidate the guys playing.
It's interesting how our perceptions of a situation can change so quickly. One minute you're having fun, and then the next something feels off, and it just totally shifts the mood.
Totally.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what happens here. The friends decide to just pack up and leave. But get this. The men actually try to stop them.
Oh, wow. They actually try to stop them. So they're not just creepy observers. They're actively trying to engage.
Yeah, they're calling out to them, but it's more menacing than friendly, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And it makes you think about how there's this primal fear, of the other, people we don't know, whose motivations are unclear.
It's like they're stepping outside the boundaries of acceptable social behavior, and that can be really unsettling. It reminds me of that concept of the uncanny valley. You know how sometimes things that are almost human but not quite right can be really creepy.
Oh yeah, like those creepy clowns.
Exactly. It's like our brains are wired to be suspicious of things that don't fit neatly into our categories of what's familiar and safe.
Anyway, so the narrator is walking home alone through the woods, and then he realizes that someone is chasing him. And it's a man wearing a black hooded sweatshirt, just like straight out of a horror movie.
Oh, a hooded figure in the dark. Yeah, that's definitely tapping into some primal fear right there.
He barely manages to escape by reaching his house, but it really leaves you wondering, what were those men really up to? Were they just messing with these kids, or was something more sinister going on? And what about that hooded figure? Was it one of them? Or someone else entirely?
This story leaves so many questions unanswered, which just makes it even more unsettling.
Right. It really plays into that fear of the unknown, like anything could be lurking out there in the dark.
And it makes you question, what we think of as safe spaces. Like, even a baseball field, a place we associate with fun and community, can become a place of fear and uncertainty.
It's like these stories are reminding us that there's always a potential for danger, even in the most familiar places. So we've got 3 stories here, each with its own creepy elements, but there's a common thread running through them all. This sense of vulnerability, of the unknown lurking beneath the surface of everyday life.
And it's that element of the unknown that really grabs our attention. It's like we're trying to make sense of these unsettling encounters to figure out where they fit into our understanding of the world.
So if we're trying to find some deeper meaning here, what can we take away from these stories? Are they just coincidences, in people's imaginations running wild, or is there something more to it? So we've talked about these creepy stories and how they make us question what we think we know. But what if it's not really about the places? What if it's more about us? Like maybe these stories are really reflections of, our own anxieties, the things that we're afraid of.
That's an interesting thought. It's like we're projecting our own fears onto the world around us. Those deep-seated anxieties about being vulnerable, being alone, the unknown, all that stuff.
Right. Like the guy in the locker room. Maybe it's not just about some creepy intruder, but it's also about that feeling of being trapped, exposed, not having control.
And the men in the woods, maybe they represent that fear of people who don't follow the rules, who are unpredictable, who threaten our sense of order.
Exactly. And each person in these stories reacts in a way that's shaped by their own experiences, right? The basketball player who got ejected, he's already on edge, so he's more likely to see everything as a threat.
And the couple sneaking out to smoke, they're already doing something they're not supposed to, so maybe they feel more vulnerable.
Like they're already primed for something bad to happen. Yeah. And then you add those isolated locations, the dark woods, the empty field, it's like they become blank canvases for our fears.
They're like Rorschach tests, right? They don't really have any inherent meaning, but we project our own anxieties onto them.
So it's not really about the monsters out there, but the monsters we create in our own minds.
It's a good reminder that we need to be aware of our own internal narratives, How are our thoughts and beliefs shaping the way we see the world? Are we seeing danger where there isn't any?
So are we saying these stories are just in people's heads? Or is there really something else going on, something we can't explain?
I think the best part about these stories is that they let us consider both possibilities. It's like, yeah, our minds can definitely play tricks on us, but maybe there are also things out there that we just don't understand yet.
It's about keeping an open mind, right? Acknowledging that the world is a complicated place and there are things we just don't have answers for.
And that's okay. It's what keeps things interesting. These stories remind us to stay curious, to question our assumptions, and to embrace the mystery.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into creepy sports stories. We'll see you next time on The Deep Dive.